something that I think is a very successful tool the enemy has is, and I don't know where it originated, but we have this concept sometimes that gets into our idea, into our head that, well, let me just ask God and whatever. And so there's times that we need to rely on God, and there's times that, and we have a whole week we're going to talk about this, so I won't go into this too much. But God has his part, and we have our part, right? Like, God's not going to just, like, lift you up out of your bed and then, like, drag you to church and then drop you down on the altar and say, okay, you're saved now. Like, we have to, there's our response, right? And so what happens is we get this idea of, well, you know, like, I'm a Christian, and I go to church, and because I believe in God, then every single thing that happens to me must be God's will. So who am I to really fight against anything? I'm just going to allow it. In fact, I've heard people even say things when they've had tragedies, like horrible evils done to their family, the theology of, well, you know, the Lord works in mysterious ways. I'm like, no, you're not defending your family. Like, it's no different than if you're sitting on your couch and someone comes in to rob you, and you go, well, this must be the Lord's will. Take what you want. You know, you've got all the things to defend yourself right there, and you're just like, oh, I was just in the middle of cleaning my guns. I just loaded the one, but hey, this must be the Lord's will. Come on in and take whatever you need. You know, beat us up, whatever. You know, it must be God's will. Like, no, that's a ridiculous concept. We would never say that or think that. But that's so many times what we do spiritually, and we just kind of accept everything that comes in. Now, yes, there's definitely consequences to sin. There's consequences to actions. There's all that. But at the same time, the enemy does target us, and he does come after us, and we have to be aware of it, because otherwise we'll find ourselves, much like the Israelites, impoverished. So and the Bible says, though, that we don't fight, right, against people, against flesh and blood. We don't fight the normal way. In fact, Ephesians 6:12 says, for we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over the present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. Okay, to sum all that up, what it's basically saying is, look, as Christians, we're not fighting necessarily the person. So if you have a boss coming after you, if you have a coworker, a friend, a bank, or whatever the situation is, it's not that person literally. There's stuff going on in the spiritual world, and we don't fight like normal, right? So we're not going to go out there and just knock the person out. Well, I'm serving God, and you're in my way. You won't give us this permit to add on to the church, so we're just going to beat you up, and then you're going to have to give it to us, and you know we're going to be mightier than you. Like, you're one county supervisor. There's a bunch of us. What are you going to do now, right? Well, he's going to call his buddy, the sheriff. That's what he's going to do. So that's not how we fight. And sometimes it's hard for us if we're not used to how we are supposed to fight. We just kind of feel incompetent. We feel like our hands are tied, and therefore that's where we go back to, well, I guess it's in God's hands. And there's definitely times that that's true, but just because it's true doesn't mean it's the situation 100% of the time. In fact, I wonder how many times Christians pray, and they're up, and they're sincere to the point where, like, because God's not answering them, they're starting to even question, does God even care about me? Is this even real? And they're praying, they're crying, carpets full of tears, like, it's like, God, I'm here again. Lord, why won't you answer? And God's up there saying, I already did. You just now have to walk in it. And so we see that sometimes we have to fight because the enemy is not going to just step back and leave us alone.